This is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So just to give you a little background, I have been providing technical stock research and consulting to institutional money managers for the past 35 years. And in the last 3 or 4 years, I started working with retail traders as well. So what I want to do in the way I design this show is I like to start out with a lesson in technical analysis. And I want to discuss today how I go about trading in multiple time frames. I want to give you a few insights that you might not realize if you've watched any of my videos in the past. And then what we'll do after that, we're going to look at the commodity action, just discuss what's taking place there. We'll look at the market, and then we're going to go through all the symbol requests that came through this week. Let's go ahead and get going. So I have my grid up of MT here at steel stock, and I've got the monthly in the bottom left, and then a weekly here in the bottom right, a daily in the upper right, and I've got a supporting weekly, another weekly that gives me the outline of using the zigzag indicator of the price structure. All right, and then we've got the relative strength line with its moving average, a 30-period moving average, and we have RSI here. Now, what I want to talk about a little bit is the fact that the way I use indicators, all right, is I'm looking, let's say weekly is my main time frame. All right, that's kind of like my key time frame, and sort of the trend time frame is the time frame I'm using to determine a setup. So typically, and the way I teach it in my course is if we're doing that, then we're looking for a setup on this time frame, and then we're going to time it off of this time frame, and we're going to use this time frame to help support my thesis of what I'm seeing on this time frame, as well as give me an idea of upside price targets and how powerful a move we could see on this time frame. So this is going to be supporting evidence. It's going to support my thesis that I'm coming up with on this time frame, and then I'm going to use this time frame to help with the timing. All right. Now, what I want to point out is that I'm basically watching the last leg. All right. So you can really see the outline here, the structure. This last leg to the upside is what I am looking at. All right. And then if we complete a pullback, right? If we got a pullback in this pattern, then I'm going to evaluate that. Now, in order to evaluate that, because it's so short-term in nature and it's really a retracement in this pattern, we're going to need to go down to this time frame to evaluate the momentum characteristics of the pullback. All right, so I'm going to go down to a daily chart to identify typically what'll be like an ABC type of a correction. If it's a correction and it's setting up to go up again, it'll typically come in the form of some type of an ABC. Now, it could be a pattern like this where we make A, B, C, or we could make something where we come down and we go sideways. So instead of going to a lower low, we make an A here, B here, C here, and it's more of a sideways triangle pattern. So I'm typically looking for one of those two things to develop. Now, if I get this and I like what I see on this time frame, okay, then I've narrowed my field. So I'm looking for stocks that on a weekly chart are showing a lot of strength on this time frame. Now I'm going to use the indicators, the volume, the ADX, and the MACD to determine the strength of this move. Now I also do want to look at the price action. I want to look at the moving average environment. All that's going to help support what I'm seeing on these indicators. And really it's the other way around. I'm using the price action and then I'm supporting it with the indicators. All right, now once we've completed that, now I know, okay, I'm going to start watching this. I'm going to stalk it and look for a pullback. Now, if the pullback happens the right way, it's going to show up on this time frame, and we're going to show weakness in the sellers, meaning the red the ADX based on the selling, that red DI will not be that strong, and typically the ADX will go down. Also, on a MACD basis, we won't see a real violent selling. We might come back down into the area of the zero line, and that would set up maybe the next turn back to the upside. All right, so if we can watch that pullback on the lower time frame, but essentially what we're doing is we're saying, look, I want to evaluate the last leg. So there's two parts of every pullback trade. There's the up leg, and then there's the pullback leg. All right, and if either one of those doesn't look right, I'm not interested. It's not a stock that I'm going to really be all that focused on. All right, now if both of those legs meet the criteria that I'm looking for, I've got the right kind of strength to the upside, and on the pullback, I've got the right kind of weakness in the indicators here showing the sellers are not that strong. And then I actually need a trigger Okay, I'm going to need a trigger to show up. And again, I'm going to use the smaller time frame for that trigger. If we wait for the weekly chart to trigger me in, it's typically going to be a little late. It's going to cost me more. I'm usually going to have to pay up a little bit for that. Anytime you're looking for confirmation, you're going to pay up for it. The other thing that bothers me a little bit is that it kind of obscures your risk reward. So you'd have to use a stop at the last low, and if your entry's up here, you've got to risk a lot more than you potentially would have using a daily chart in a structure like this, where you can get a turn and you can use the daily chart to reduce the risk in the trade. All right. So we've got a lot of little things going on here. And again, we're kind of referencing this bigger time frame, and that's going to help determine what kind of trade you want to do. Do you want to really play for a bigger move? Do you think you can want to trail it? Or if this doesn't look all that great, but you want to take the trade, then you might just take it for a shorter term move. And that's why this time frame becomes so valuable, because if you can reduce the risk in a trade, then we can, if once we've done that, then we have the risk reward potential to really just play for a single leg to the upside if we want to. All right. So this is the way I think when I'm looking at these charts. All these charts have play an important role in what I'm doing. This would be the main time frame. Now, if you want to be a swing trader, you would go down a time frame. This would be your main time frame. Your hourly would help with your timing, and the weekly would be kind of a reference to make sure you're not making any stupid decisions, right? If you want to go longer term, then you would use this as your trend time frame, and this is going to help you with your timing. Now, typically when I do it that way, I still will use this to help a little bit to fine tune the entry, but you can do it with these two time frames alone. And essentially you would go to a quarterly chart to help support your thesis of what you're seeing on this time frame. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. So my services can be found at rabilstockresearch.com. I'm on this page right now. You can see at the top, I've got my advanced trend and momentum courses. There's 3 different courses now. I've individually priced them, or you can buy them as a bundle, and they are lifetime access now. So I changed that. It's not year to year. Okay. And then we have the individual package. I have about 2 to 3 reports each week, plus a special weekly video for that package that covers a lot of details into what I'm seeing for the week. So if you have an interest, go ahead and take a look. Also, the book is on the book tab. You can go if this is a good place to start if you're new to my methodology. My comments are for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investments. All right, so I've got the commodity charts up here in this ACP framework where you can pull up as many charts as you like at the same time. So I've saved this out as a layout, and I just like to be able to reference this real quick. Now, I did rearrange this somewhat. I've got the metals along the left. I have gold, silver, and copper along the left side. And then on the right side, I've got the ags with corn, wheat, and soybeans. And then I've got the oil here in the middle, USO and UNG, and then cocoa kind of by itself down in the middle. But it just gives a real quick, I can go through and see, okay, what are the metals doing right now, right? And then go over here and see what the agricultural commodities are doing. And you can see really where the money is, where the buyers are stepping in. It's in the metal side. We've got a lot of strength in gold, which has been the case. Silver also, but a little bit more of a late bloomer than GLD, but still strong, showing the relative performance versus the S&P, both of these. And then look at what copper has done as of late. This has really kicked in. And I think that's a pretty important thing to keep an eye on, especially with the bigger names like the FCX and SCCO, which had gone through a little bit of a tough period. I think they're going to start to see some signs of improvement. We'll have to watch and see if that's the case. If we look at the ags, now nothing's really happened yet, but if you notice, we have broken the downtrend line on a lot of these. On these patterns. So if these can turn up and take out the prior peak, right? So if this can turn up here and take out this prior high, from a few months back. Same thing here. If we can turn up, then we have the potential for a true and important shift taking place. And I think something we want to be on the lookout for that would support the improvement in the commodities. Okay. Notice what's going on in the gas stock. Gas has made a really strong move and it's starting to pull back in a pretty orderly fashion. The gas stocks really do. The stocks that are mostly focused on gas are trading very, very well. And then the USO has been more of a side, oil has been more of a sideways pattern. I think if they can make it back up through this prior 80 level, I think that would be a pretty encouraging sign. Okay, let's switch over to, we'll start out with the QQQ and take a hard look at this, mainly because this is very similar to what's taking place in the S&P. Again, anyone who's interested in my take on the S&P, I do a full market conditions review, as well as I go through the key time frames, monthly, weekly, daily, hourly on Friday morning on my YouTube channel. So let's look at this QQQ though. Now, if we look at the last leg, right, we got this really strong leg. You see the strength of this move. Now it's all about this rally phase and how strong it is. And right now, I mean, we really haven't had, it's been okay, especially over this week, we started to see some sign of improvement, but we have not gotten back above this key resistance area at 500, which I think we have to be on the lookout for some kind of a reversal. We could look at an hourly chart, but I mean, I think the bottom line is that we've shown strength to the downside. We're starting to show some signs of improvement, especially when you look at what the MACD has done. The MACD has now created the possibility for divergence. So if we were to come back down and test this low, odds are this is not going to confirm, especially if we go to a lower low. I do not think MACD will confirm that. So I think it's an encouraging sign what we're seeing, but because of the strength here, we have to give this credence that this is going to need to come back and test at a minimum. All right. Now it could be just the beginning of a whole nother leg to the downside. We have declining moving averages. We rallied into resistance, and the way that would play out, I think, would be a move back down to like 475, try and rally, and then it would break down, something like that. I think that's what I'd be looking for if it's going to play out to the downside. And we have to give that credit again because of the strength of the last leg. All right. Exactly what I was talking about in the lesson. The last leg is representative of pretty strong strength, pretty strong selling here. You can really see the strength on the daily time frame. All right. Let's look at the IWM. So this one has been weak. It's trying to recover the 18-month line, but just not really that much strength in the momentum to the upside. And then on this leg here, we've actually created pretty good ADX strength based on the selling. All right, so this last leg, to me, is showing pretty good strength. What that tells me is now we've got some pretty good resistance up here. Probably not the type of situation where you go running right through all that. You could rally up, but then I would expect at least another test, if not another lower low, based on the strength we're seeing in the ADX, based on the selling pressure. All right. All right, let's start running through some of the requests that came through. Let's look at this BABA. Look at what's taken place. So very similar to what happened back here. Let me just show you this. So when this happened back here, we showed a lot of strength. And I said, we have to evaluate the strength of the pullback. Well, the pullback was really, really hard, and it ended up forming this kind of zigzag. It would have been a very tough trade. Now, it ended up making another really strong bull move. So if you just bought the pullback, didn't use a stop or anything like that, or you gave it a lot of room, you would have been fine. But for most people, I think, who were trying to trade this, I think it would have been a little bit more difficult. Now, what we're looking for, again, is a little bit more of an orderly pullback back into this zone. And if that ends up being the case, then and we want it to be on lighter volume and not show a lot of strength on the daily chart. And right now, I like what I'm seeing. So if this can work its way back down to the zero line, I think this would be one I would be watching for some kind of a trigger. Really nice basing pattern on the longer term chart. CVX, look at what's taking place here. We go and look. So think about this. So we like what's taking place on the weekly chart because we've got this, you see this inside swing. Let me just explain this really quickly. We formed an inside swing. This is something I talked about with my subscribers. So we have this swing high, this swing low, and this swing high. And if you notice, we made a higher swing low and then a lower swing high. That's an inside swing. Something to be on the lookout for. It's a sign of compression. And then we did another inside swing where we made a higher low above this peak, right? Now we're breaking out to the upside after this compression has taken place, showing signs of improvement on a relative basis. And I think that, the potential for this to have follow through is confirmed by what I'm seeing on the monthly chart. Look at this monthly zero line reversal. It's really a flyby pattern where it doesn't actually touch the zero line. And we've got a little bit of reverse divergence that has developed. And there's no sign of selling strength because red DI was not able to get itself back above 25. So I think this is in a really strong position. I think we need to see, energy overall trading better for this to take off like a rocket, but I think it's in a pretty good position. I think if we can get a little higher low, I would definitely consider this. Look for a little pullback on the daily chart, and I think this might be worthwhile, especially based on what's taking place in the ADX on the daily. Okay, HIMS. So we've got this pattern that has developed in a lot of stocks where we show strength to the upside, and then we think, maybe this is a climax pattern because it's made such a big move in such a short period of time. Well, we don't know that until we see the pullback, all right? And we look at the pullback. The pullback is very, very violent. This is not the kind of pullback that I'm interested in. We get a big spike high and reversal bar. Look at the weekly big outside reversal where it goes to a new high and then reverses back down and shows a lot of strength on the volume pattern. Now, it's not reflected in the indicator, so you have to go down to the smaller time frame for that. Now, because this is so volatile, even the smaller time frame is lagging. So we're not actually seeing the strength to the downside on this time frame. It might actually lead to maybe another rally here, but I don't know. I just don't like this pattern where you go up and you show a big reversal and then you erase the entire last leg. It suggests to me that you're going to have more consolidating. It's a tough way to play, tough way to make money. I think I'd be careful here unless I've got some skill at being nimble, using an hourly chart or something like that. I probably would be less inclined to play it. LRCX, there's still pretty good support. I think this is trying to turn around. I just think it's early. I don't think we really need to be in a big hurry on this thing. To see how if this can hold and then turn itself back up through these two moving averages. This is the 200-day right here, this blue line. That's the 40-week, and that's the 200-day. We need to get back above that line, and we kind of want to see it cup around a little bit, get the 18 rising, and then we could consider buying the next pullback, especially if we get some ADX strength. Now, Microsoft, I think, is pretty impressive here. In the decline phase, I mean, this is real selling pressure. We've shown some strength to the downside, and we have had trouble with this 400 area, which I think is a key level of resistance. Notice how this has been underperforming now for going on about 6 to 9 months. Okay, so what we need now is to evaluate. So we have strong move to the downside. Now we have to evaluate the strength to the upside. If we don't show any strength to the upside, then I think you have to consider this 400 mark an area to be a seller. All right, so that's how I would be looking at that from that standpoint. Nike is, we're going to need to see a climax pattern. We've gone to a new low here. All right, and there were signs that the momentum is slowing down. If you notice what the ADX is doing, ADX is not going to it's not crossing back above the 25 line. So, but we need price to actually kick back above this key support area and prove that it's making a bottom. Right now, it doesn't look like it's doing that. And if it doesn't hold here, you have to sort of assume the next support area is around $60. So got to be careful. Don't jump the gun. Make sure, I would wait for this to get back above 70 and then consider playing an undercut and rally if it plays out that way. But you got to be really careful because I think if we don't see any strength here in the near term, there's probably going to be some weakness coming. SMCI, still struggling with resistance from the 18-month. It tried to poke up there. And then again, look, so we got really nice strength to the upside and then a lot of strength to the downside and erased the entire move. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for strength to the upside and then weakness on the pullback. Not a lot of strength in the sellers. This is a lot of strength in the sellers. So you got to be very careful here. It's trying to hold the 18-week, but we're going to need to move back above this prior area up here. These little peaks up here. Let me just see what price that is. right about the 45 area, a little bit above 45. And if it can do it quickly, then we could have a little bit of a trading move. But I still think there's a lot of resistance up there above 50. Thanks for watching today. If you have any stock requests, you can send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com or just put them in the comment area below. Also, if you want to learn some more about some of these techniques, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's called Invest Like a Pro. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.